Hello, traders and investors. I'm L.A. Little. This is your daily NeoTA wrap, where we do this show looking at the market from a neoclassical perspective. That's what TA today was about. That's what it was founded on. That was what my books were about. And, if you want to learn how the market works, that's what we try to do, is help teach you how to really take advantage of it. As far as what happened today, let's just flip in here and take a look at these markets. So, indexes up 0.47 on the Dow, 0.29 on the NASDAQ, just barely squeaks out a gain on the NASDAQ. The S&P was up 0.29. Small caps up 0.83. So you had a nice day up again. DAX, CAX, all across Europe up. Pretty much everywhere you look was up, with the exception of just a couple of indexes. These markets continue, right? Their ascent. Problem is they're extremely extended. And as I'm going to show you here, that extension now is really starting to become more extreme. So what you've had, and again, let me be careful. We don't have anything to tell us it's going to fail. What we do have is extension after extension, consolidation, extension, right? Small consolidation, now an extension, another doji, volume into this market today on a breakout, but it can't finish near the top and it can't extend during the day. Matter of fact, the range day I had today called for this market to be actually, the top of today was the top of the range, not a trend day up. And so to me, this market is showing its age and it's showing its extension here. And I wouldn't be very surprised at all if we get some sort of pullback tomorrow, even though we don't have a signal for that. Fed is out tomorrow. Nobody expects the Fed to raise rates. If they do, the market's going to be shocked. I want to clean up something I did last night. Last night I talked about Facebook earnings were out. I was looking at the wrong news item. Facebook was not out. I think it comes out tomorrow night. And you got Amazon also this week. So those two still not reported. Microsoft, Google have reported. Microsoft pretty much flat. Google sold down today as we thought it would. Let's flip over now. So that's the S&P. S&P still nothing to show you. It's going to turn. If we look at the NASDAQ, let's see what that one looks like. And a little bit more volume, over, under, a little bit more volume though. So that's not going to be a reversal signal either. And let's see if the NDX looks any different. And about the same, although it was an inside day, NDX couldn't lift up, and that was because of the Google sell down. And finally, the Russell. Russell takes off, goes up, tests the top, has a little bit more volume. All the indexes tell us it can still go higher. Let's look at these sectors and see. And if you look over in Europe, right, Europe isn't at the highs. Europe's struggling. And a lot of that has to do with the dollar being as weak as it is and the euro being as strong as it is, right? It's putting a lot of pressure on their markets to try and continue higher. I want to look at the sectors real quick. That's the IYT. Can't do anything. SOX pulled back a little try to reversal here in this high. Let's see, what is that? 14928, and closes just over less volume. That one actually can bump tomorrow too. Basic materials, these guys have been on a tear. They were on a tear again today. New highs. Energy also on a tear today, and got some push. Look at that, on a tear today. Still finishes near the lows, 1.26 up. XLF was the big winner today as it made a new high, but it barely was able to stay over the high. 25.19 closes at 22. So all of those three new highs, all of them, well, energy is not a new high, but XLB, XLF, new highs. XLI, on the other hand, 3M had a tough day off of earnings. That's a bearish engulfing. Remember, we just talked about this, or at least I talked about it in a weekend broadcast. I'm not sure I mentioned it here. We talked about that this had failed to hold the bullish retest regen sideways at best. Today you get a bearish engulfing. That looks to pull back. And that is one of the major weightings. XLK still hanging at the top. Durables we've looked at before and said they're struggling, but they're getting their push up, and it looks like they're going to get over that bearish retest regen. So that means they can go sideways now. They can push a little bit more, but it's a sideways, not a down. So as I was telling members this weekend, this looks to have been the bottom down here on a short-term basis. XLU had a good push up. I think it pulled back pretty steep this week, and it did. That one had the big spike up. XLV Healthcare saw a big reversal in biotechs today, and healthcare feels it too. Bearish engulfing there, another large weighting. So you got two of them bearish engulfings on large weightings. Biotechs, they went up, tested, and bearish engulfing as well. And so you've got it going across the board on those three. And finally, discretionary, they've been struggling. And today, they struggled to get higher as well. So you have XLK, XLF, XLB, the drivers, everything else starting to pull back on the short-term basis on the end sectors. Let me go over and look at some other things I haven't looked at in a while and take a few minutes here. So let's look at those currencies I was just talking about. As the euro goes up, that puts pressure on the European markets. Today, it goes over back under at least on a test of the highs from a couple of days back. You kind of got an over-under working here on a short-term basis here on the weekly. This is an unsustainable move, right? And you see these from time to time, but that angle of ascent, that's not sustainable. And so we're going to see this thing pull back. You got the swing point highs here. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back into there fairly quickly. Let me look, and that's on a weekly basis. Let me look at the dollar itself. So the dollar should be doing exactly the opposite, given that the euro is the biggest weighting. And the dollar had more volume, though. Let's see what it looks like on a weekly. Starting to look like it's going to try to put in a short-term bottom here. So dollar, and this is with the Fed tomorrow. I wonder if it's trying to tell us something. Is the Fed gonna come out and surprise us tomorrow? I don't know that, and I wouldn't guess which way it's going to be, but that could be in the cards here from what I'm seeing. GDAX on the German market. So as you see here, we were just talking about us at highs. Cheap dollar, we're at highs. These guys can't get anything off the bottom hardly. So you can see the difference in the way things trade as a result of what's happening in the currencies. Here's the SSEC, which is the composite index in China. That looks like finally an over-under, on the daily. So maybe a little pullback coming there. For my friends over in Australia, let's see what that one's looking like. Just a big sideways trend. Same thing on the weekly. And for my friends up north in Toronto Exchange, they also struggling on currency probably. Let's move over and see what the gold is doing. So if the dollar is weak, you would think gold would be strong, but I don't believe that's what we're going to find. Let's pop up the gold market. So GLD, where you at? There you are. And so gold had a decent run, I know, and it'll pull back today. But if you look at it on a weekly, just a big range. I don't see anything there that you can hang more than that on it. Silver's still at its lows. That one, even though you see a big spike here over the last week, silver just tested the lows and barely got over it. So I don't think silver or gold are ready to go anywhere yet. You've had a lot of money going into the banking sector in Europe. You see that again today. That's been a big one, just like it has been here. Emerging markets had been on a move. They kind of consolidated up here, but a nice big spike up on those too. Money's chasing what's out there, folks. It's no doubt. You got a lot of money still shaking around in the system. If you pull back and you just think about what's happened over the 10 years, you've had 3 rounds of QE in the U.S. You've had 3 rounds now. I guess it's 3 in Europe. You've got infinite rounds in Japan. You've got massive liquidity injections through the central government in China, and you have continuing QE, or at least consistent QE in Britain. All told, you're in the double-digit trillions of dollars that have been poured into the system. When the Fed started to pull back and not do QE anymore and began to even talk about draining off some of that excess, we still have massive QE going on in Europe. And so, it's kind of like kept us afloat and allowed us to even go higher, with the currencies doing what they're doing. So at some point, it all stops. And there is going to be a reckoning as a result of that. But like I used to say, 3 years, actually it's longer than that, probably 4 years ago, when I first started writing for MarketWatch, I said, it don't matter until it matters, right? They were calling for a crash back then, and I said, it's nonsense. The structure's not there. Structure's not there now. We can get a pullback. We can get a 3 or 4 or 5% pullback at any point. But you're up 10, 15, right? 20 if you're looking at the NASDAQ. 5 is nothing. So you lose a quarter of what you went up. It is a game. They keep playing the game until the liquidity is taken away. The game will continue. That's it for tonight. Tomorrow you got the Fed, and then you got earnings after the bell. I expect that it's going to be tougher tomorrow than it was today, even though today showed you, if you just look at it intraday, you couldn't stretch up even though you gapped up to a new high. That usually is a sign something is going on. Have yourself a great one. Take care. I'll see you next time. Good night.